Welcome in, everybody, to the Bare Knuckle Recovery Podcast, the show where we talk about all sorts of different topics revolving around drug and alcohol addiction, mental illness, and recovery.
That's right.
The most important part, the bare knuckle recovery.
That's right.
As always, I'm Tommy Streeter here with Nate Mollering. Unfortunately, we have no guests today, so once again, you're just going to have to listen to us go back and forth about nonsense.
And it's not because we have a shortage of guests that want to be on the show. Why is there no guests today, Tommy?
Because I'm a terrible podcast host, and it's my job to plan the podcast and have the topics and invite the guests, and I just am terrible at my job. So
we have many guests with us here in spirit today. And,
we will have one next week, though.
We will have one next week, and we will have many following weeks that we are recording. We've got a pretty good lineup of people.
We do.
So
it's all here.
Yep, a lot of local.
I was sick last week, so I didn't get
I was too.
Yes, we were both sick.
We had different things. I had COVID for the fourth time. And Tommy had sinus infection for the 12th time.
And a respiratory infection.
He gets a lot of sinus and respiratory infections. And I get COVID a lot. So it's very interesting.
Wrong with this.
Yeah.
But anyways, back to me being a terrible podcast host. We didn't really have a topic planned for today either. So I went and spoke to a few people who are currently in a treatment program here in Fort Wayne and just asked them for, some suggestions on some things that they would like to hear, not just us talk about necessarily, but things that they are interested in hearing about in general. So,
yeah. I mean, it's good that you went. Like when Tommy goes and meets people that are in early recovery, they're typically inspired to continue with their recovery. When they meet me, they see a bald man with abnormally large hands.
Like, well, I don't want to be anything like that.
Yeah,
guy, so.
With no style. And they're usually pretty discouraged. So,
well, that's a great segue into one of the first topics that we got, because one of the things that they had mentioned were common fears in early recovery. And you lost your hair when you got sober.
That wasn't really a fear. I was kind of blindsided. I woke up one day and there was an outline of my head that was all hair just had fallen out in my pillow. No, that's not what happened. But yes, I did get sober, and I was losing my hair before I got sober, but it for some reason accelerated.
It expedited the process.
Probably because I started working with addicts in early recovery, and I saw what my parents had to deal with for many years.
And it aged all the gray in my beard also.
Yeah, it aged both of us quite a bit. I look like I'm about 40 and Tommy looks like he's 35. So, yeah, I mean, it's one of the things in early recovery I think a lot of people worry about is losing things that are important to them. A lot of us build the things that are important to us in active addiction up in our mind, like we have a lot of goals that we want to achieve when we get sober. Like getting a job, a family, a car, a house. And I think a lot of people are worried that they're not going to be successful at attaining those things, which is a very real fear to have. But I remember when I was in active addiction, when I thought about people that were sober who were in recovery, and even just like normal people who hadn't sold their car for a crack rock or, like pawned their 5th PlayStation. I admired the fact that they had a 9-to-5 job and that they had a home that was stable and they had a family that they weren't letting down. Like we talk about all the time, both of us have stories about when we were in active addiction, driving around, doing our dirt, whatever it was, whether we were getting high or we were, executing our schemes,
trying to figure out how we were going to get high,
gather capital in order to trade it for the substance of our choice. We would often see, it was usually at night because we were creatures of the night. Certainly I slept most of the day, which was part of the reason I couldn't really hold down much of a job. They didn't appreciate it. But we're driving around at night doing our thing. And, a lot of times I would just see people's, the lights on in their living room, and really just think about how awesome it would be to have a stable home and a family and a place where the lights are on and you're not worried they're going to get cut off, and a place where you don't have to lie to the people around you about why you don't have money or why they don't have money because you stole their money, or where the PlayStation or the big screen TV is.
Yeah.
You know, because as many times as I stole something, you know, I think people were going to notice. They always noticed. And, yeah, I just couldn't even imagine living a normal life and putting one foot in front of the other, doing a 9 to 5, 8 to 4, whatever it is, and coming home and being a normal person who's not thinking about getting completely obliterated every single day, every single minute of the day. You know, when I was in active addiction, I couldn't imagine doing anything unless it revolved around using a substance that was going to alter my state of mind. So my fear was, for an extended period of time, was like, I could never do these things because I've never really done it. Like, I was not one of those people that was a functional addict.
Yeah.
I talk to people all the time. We talk to people all the time. They're like, yeah, man, like I had a heroin problem for 7 years and was in the union and like was an apprentice and then became a journeyman and like got an award, you know, for being the best welder. Dude, like I was like not even able to make it to my shift at like, you know, a clothing store like Macy's to clock in on time. And I couldn't even stay the whole shift without, you know, having like my drug dealer come and meet me with money I borrowed from a coworker. You know, like I went through so many jobs, so many places to stay, so many relationships. I was completely dysfunctional. So one of my biggest fears was, would I ever be functional in general? But also, you know, I thought I functioned better on drugs. So, I mean, a lot of people are concerned, you know, can I even function without drugs in my system? Because without them, I feel so messed up, because a lot of us start using drugs in the first place to self-medicate. Like there's something internally that feels off to us, you know? And so when we take that substance of choice, we're like, oh, this is how I'm supposed to feel. So everybody else feels.
That was my first thought when, you know, when he said that today was, I'm going to have to learn how to deal, like all that other stuff you just said, that definitely crossed my mind as well. You know, holding down a job and repairing relationships with my family, all that stuff. But the first thing that I thought of was, I'm going to have to deal with Tommy.
Yeah. And you didn't like Tommy, did you?
No, I hated Tommy. That's
Tommy
why
sucks.
I started. Yes.
I agree.
He was a terrible person. But that was, you know, why I started, like you just said, that was why I started using drugs in the first place, was because of all the negative thoughts and feelings that I had about myself. And so it was like, now I'm going to have to actually learn to deal with those things, because if I don't, I want to be sober.
Right.
But if I don't learn to deal with all of that stuff, I'm never going to maintain any type of sobriety.
Right. I think a lot of people are worried about, like you said, getting sober and having to sit with their feelings and their internal thoughts, because a lot of us, you know, the most dangerous 6 inches is between our ears. So when we get stuck in our head and we just have that stuff rolling around, and then we don't have our primary coping mechanism that we've been reinforcing every single day, usually multiple times a day for years upon years, it's a scary thought. Like, what if I don't like myself?
What if other people don't like me?
That's the bigger thought, right?
Like that's a common one too. Like a lot of so another fear that people have is, you know, like you said, losing things that are important to you, losing their friends,
right? Or
their friends, you know,
quote unquote friends.
Most of the people that I was hanging out with when I was doing heroin weren't really my friend,
right?
But that was who I had been around for, you know, the last
those were your human connections,
4 or 5 years. That certain group of people, like that was who I spent my time with. That was who I came up with these stupid schemes with on how we were going to get high
and executed them with.
Yeah. So that was another thing too, was I'm going to have to find new friends. I'm going to, you know, that. Yeah. There's a lot of very common fears that come along with, and that was part of the reason I think that, you know, we've talked about numerous times, how many times, you know, that we either went to treatment or tried to get sober on our own and relapsed.
Right.
We were both chronic relapsers. And I think that was a big part of the reason. You know, I was just talking the other day about a lot of times people like hit this wall, whether that 30 or 60 or 90 days, like that's a really common time for people to just kind of hit this wall when they're first starting out in sobriety. And I think a lot of those things that we just talked about, those are partially, at least sometimes, reasons for that.
They certainly are.
I mean, it was terrifying. And one of the other things that came into my mind was making amends. That was something that I was, absolutely.
Living it out.
I was terrified to do that because I hurt a lot of people, not only physically, but mentally and emotionally and financially. I mean, like,
how many times did you said sorry before?
Yeah, quite a few.
Right.
So, you know, knowing that I'm going to have to go do that, especially with my family, they didn't want to hear me say sorry in the first place.
No, they don't want to hear it.
And
they want to see it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's hard because it takes time. And one of the things for people in early recovery, whether it's alcohol, drugs, whatever, we're used to quick fixes, right? So recovery doesn't work quite as well as quickly as a few drinks of Jim Beam or a few pills or a few, lines of Coke. So that's another fear, is some people think that, the relief or the self-love and acceptance and human connection is never going to happen because it doesn't happen within the first 5 days. They think, oh my God, it's never going to happen. I mean, we're used to instant gratification in our early recovery.
You know what I will say though?
Yeah.
And maybe you'll agree with this, maybe not. I had a lot of those fears, the first 6 times I went to treatment, the first 1,000 times that I tried to get sober on my own. I absolutely 100% had all of those fears that we just spoke about.
Right.
But the last time I went to treatment, when I finally made that decision where I'm done making choices for myself, because Tommy sucks. He's a terrible decision maker. Everything that I think is the right thing to do is the wrong thing to do. When I finally decided, like, I'm not making those decisions for myself anymore. I'm going to start listening to other people. I'm going to do everything that these people tell me I should do. I think that was the most freeing thing that I've ever felt in my life. So, I think I kind of lost a lot of those fears the last time that I went to treatment, and I've been sober since then.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know, maybe that's.
Yeah. I mean, the best way to go through fear is just by walking directly into it. And that's what most of us don't do. We don't practice those things in active addiction. We're running. So it's a different type of mental, emotional, and spiritual muscle to push through. Perseverance is something that we have to work on a lot. But it's one of the principles that is super important if you want to stay in recovery,
Yeah. And I think another thing, that I didn't do this last time that I definitely tried to do every other time, and that we see people do all the time, is trying to skip steps and trying to push things along faster, and trying to make things happen. And I didn't do any of that this time.
Right.
Like, I just kind of let, I was worried about what I was doing today. Like, got a job at a candy store making like minimum wage when I'm 24 years old.
Yeah.
That wasn't, I had to just totally swallow all of my pride and be like, you know what, I'm right at this point in my life, I'm not too good to work at a candy store
and make your pride and a whole lot of candy.
Yes, I definitely swallowed a lot of candy and soda. It wasn't the healthiest year of my life, but
3 square candy meals a day.
Yes, it was.
Wow,
I didn't have enough money to eat anything else. So.
Yeah, right.
So
you ate the gummy cheeseburger instead of a real one, just pretended. Yeah. Yep. I mean, like that's hard. I mean, but that's early recovery for a lot of people.
It is.
You come in with nothing and the world owes you nothing, despite what you may think or want. You have to earn it, and a lot of people maybe wouldn't agree with that, but a lot of us have been part of the problem for so long. And people always say, being somebody with substance use disorder or an addict or an alcoholic is not a moral failing. And I 100% agree with that.
Yeah.
It's not a moral failing. Where it becomes a moral failing, and some people aren't going to agree, but where it becomes a moral failing is when you admit that you have it and then you refuse to do anything about it. Yeah. If you just bump along and say, well, I'm an addict, I can't help it, that is total bull crap.
Yep.
You can't help it. There's things you can do. It may not be what you want to do. Well, I don't have every program available to me. Well, that's tough. But there's a lot of programs out there that are free, reduced, or that you can get paid for by the state that can work for you if you work it, So that's another thing, is I think a lot of people are just afraid to push themselves, which is understandable. And that's why we started getting high in the first place, is because we didn't want to actually have to do any work. We wanted to hit the easy button and feel better immediately,
Absolutely.
So it's okay to go through some pain and some discomfort and to continue to push through that. And I always reiterate that to people, like, recovery is not easy. It's simple. Do the next right thing. Yeah. Worry about your own actions, your own attitudes, but it's not easy.
It's not an easy thing.
It's not easy. No, because you always want to worry about everybody else. And I think in our society and our culture, we're always worried about what other people are doing.
Worried about what people think about us, and
also like catching other people doing something wrong and then pointing it out to them. Like, that's none of my business.
Nope.
You know what I mean? Unless somebody's doing it like directly to me, that's a whole different story. But I mean, I'm not here to take inventory of other people. I'm here to take inventory of myself. And a lot of people, if they can truly do that and, start to take responsibility for things, then a lot of stuff falls into place.
Yeah.
but it's a slow process. It's one foot in front of the other, and it's very normal to have fears, but we're not used to pushing through those fears, you know? And what a lot of people find is like, when you do push through those fears, when you get to the other side, you see it wasn't as big of a deal as you thought it was. It's much less daunting than you made it up in your mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like a tragedy you make up in your own head. Mark Twain used to talk about that, like you make stuff up in your head, all these terrible things are going to happen and nothing ever happens. So
yeah,
that's something to remember too, is like, get out of your head.
Yeah.
Because that's a scary place to be.
Yeah,
it is.
Well, and that's a good, again, kind of, I don't like using the word segue, but it works. So
because you think of the little two-wheel scooter or what?
Yeah. But again, a lot of what you just said is a good segue into another question that we got. And it was, how do I just accept that I am an addict or I am an alcoholic and get rid of the why me mindset? Like, why did I become an alcoholic? Why can't I go to the bar with my friends and have a couple beers and then go home and call it a day? Why can't I smoke a joint here and there and feel good and have a good time and then go home?
Yeah.
So that was one of the other things, is how do you get rid of that mindset of why me? You know what I said?
What?
So I was talking to Holly. Some people know who Holly is that are listening to this, but we were talking about Dick. Dick was going to go be a guest speaker today. So I was talking to Holly about this, and I said, well, you know what Dick would say if somebody said that to him, right? And she was like, what? And I said, and I've heard him say this multiple times, is, well, do you want to figure out why your ass is on fire, or do you want to put it out?
Right.
I think that's a great, like, why sit there and, woe is me. Oh, yeah. Like you just said, using it as an excuse and this and that, when, it is what it is. Like, you've proven to yourself and everybody else that you can't go have a few beers. You can't just smoke some weed. You can't just experiment here and there. Yeah. Some people can. Good for them. I can't. You can't. We tried it. It didn't work. So am I just going to sit here and feel bad for myself for the rest of my life and try to make other people feel bad for me? Or am I going to do what it takes to actually take care of this and stop it in its tracks and try to live a healthy, happy life like that?
Yeah. I mean, people say, why not me? But I mean, they say, why me? But I say, why not you? You know what I mean? Like, why not you? And let me tell you something. If the worst thing that happens to you is you get the disease of addiction, you can't smoke weed or drink anymore, big deal. Okay. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to be fine. Yep. The only thing you have to do is abstain from those things, which I know is harder than it sounds, but like, on the list of like things you can get, there is definitely a lot of things you can do to mitigate the issues surrounding that, and there's more and more tools out there and programs all the time, right? Now, a lot of them are just like repackaged old stuff that's shined up a little bit and taken a few things out. Yeah. But like, there's so many options out there for recovery at this point that you're bound to find something that can work for you. It's kind of like these diets, or, like P90X and, like Advocare and all these like diet fads and workout fads, these package programs you can get, they work. All of them work if you stick to it. The people who say the diet doesn't work are the people who don't stick to the diet. It's the same thing with recovery. It's the same principle, right? Yeah. Like, if you take the steps in the book that they give you, then you're going to be okay. So pick something that you like, stick with it, work it, and you'll come through this. And again, like, if the worst disease you get is substance use disorder, and again, I agree, like, it's got a high death rate, so it's tough. Yeah. But like, the great thing about substance use disorder is you have the power to fight back. And it is something that there's plenty of steps laid out for you that you can take. And, the 12 steps, there's other steps out there. There's, you got AA, which Alcoholics Anonymous, you got Narcotics Anonymous, you got Heroin Anonymous, you got Cocaine Anonymous, you got Methamphetamines Anonymous.
You got every anonymous that there is.
You got Celebrate Recovery, which is like the Christian version of the 12 steps, which the 12 steps are from the Bible anyway. So whatever, they just want to repackage them, do something different. Yep. And then you've got Refuge Recovery, which is like the Eastern Buddhist version of recovery. You've got smart recovery, which is supposed to be more intellectually based.
Self-management and recovery training, which didn't ever work for me because self-management was not my strong suit, but I've seen it work for people. So
but at the end of the day, like there's so many things out there that are available to you for free. And then we haven't even begun to talk about like the different treatment modalities, treatment programs, private, public, you name it. Like, so, I mean, there is something you can do to fight back with that disease, you know, and I don't really feel bad for people when they say, oh, like I'm so upset that I can't smoke weed or drink anymore. Like, it's part of life. Like, so now you basically have to like raw dog life now, which is one of like the most badass things you can do, in my opinion.
Yep,
you know, like if you want to be tough, like
learn to live with your emotions and learn how to deal with them and cope with them. And I agree. Learn
how to naturally produce dopamine, exercise, eat the right foods, get 8 hours of sleep, which people are like, what? I don't want to do that, you know, take a cold shower.
8 hours of sleep.
Well, you know, I do, but you know, you take a cold shower, go work out, go for a run, you know, go do something for somebody that can't do anything for you in return, and just do it because it's the right thing to do. Like, those are types of things that you can get naturally high on. Right. And it's not like the same high as you're going to get from heroin, but I mean,
well, let's hope not.
No, it's going to make you, it's going to give purpose and meaning to your life. And that's really what recovery is all about. I mean, how big of a deal is it really that you can't smoke weed and drink with people at a bar at 3 a.m. who don't really probably care about you anyway, making memories you're not really going to remember, you know, because you're half blacked out the whole time. I mean, is that really living? Putting poison in your body on a consistent basis just so you can numb yourself so you don't have to deal with the real world? I mean, I think it's actually more of a gift than it is a curse, that it's something that doesn't work for you, you know, because now you can take that out of your life, and it's something that you can just say, like, I'm not doing this anymore. You know, I've never met somebody, you know, who has made that decision to not use substances that really believes like that's what they're meant to do, that has been a bitter, mean person.
Yeah.
You know, like they typically are focused on things other than just making themselves feel good, which ultimately at the end of the day is what smoking weed and drinking is.
Yep.
And I'm not talking about people who have cancer that are smoking medicinal marijuana. It's a totally different story. But the worst thing that happens to you is you can't drink alcohol, smoke weed, or do heroin anymore. You're going to be fine.
Yes, I agree. And you know, even the people that may not be an addict or an alcoholic, but like you just said, you know, 3 o'clock in the morning, they're at the bar, they've been there since 9 p.m. So they're going to go home, they're going to wake up, you know, however many hours later, they're going to be hungover. Mm-hmm. Like, if you just, you know, think about all of the time and energy that you put into that, if you
money
that you put into that, save that money, put that time and energy into something beneficial that's actually going to, you know, help get you somewhere in life. You're right. Yeah. You're absolutely right.
Maybe go mow your neighbor's lawn or pick up trash in your neighborhood or something, you know, go read to kids down at the Urban League.
Yeah.
Help them with their homework, you know, God forbid. So,
yeah, I agree. That's a very good point. It's a good way to look at it.
It is. Or there's a lot of like homeless outreach groups that go out at night on your Friday night when you want to be partying, you know, go do something for somebody else. You know, like I'm obviously all for people like who are responsible adults who can consume alcohol, but I can certainly tell you that alcohol by far does the most damage in this country, even more than fentanyl. I know fentanyl gets the news a lot, but I mean, the CDC last thing that I read was that 120,000 people die every year from alcohol. You know, I mean, so that's a huge number, you know. It's one of the worst drugs for you as far as damage to your system.
Yep.
To your vital organs.
I was definitely surprised the first time that someone had ever explained that to me, and what alcohol actually does to your body over time. Shuts down every natural body function that you have, every organ in your body. Alcohol over time shuts it down, and it's a slow process, you know, like you said.
Depends how much you drink.
Well, sure, but compared to overdosing on fentanyl or heroin or something, sure, it's a slower process compared to that. But I mean, we've seen it. The people that come in and, you know, have just completely demolished their body, their liver, their their lives, jobs,
Skin,
families. I mean, everything.
Yeah, I mean, they just So if the worst thing happens, you can't drink alcohol anymore. Honestly, I would look at it as a blessing, not a curse.
Drink some tea.
Yeah, drink some tea.
water.
How about water? People don't drink enough water. I know that's for sure.
Yep.
What do we got next, Tommy?
I thought this was a pretty good one too. We kind of hit on it a little bit already, but they asked me, what were you looking for when you started using drugs? And at first it was, I wanted to fit in. I wanted to fit in with the people around me. But once I did it and once I got high, like I said earlier, I had always been, I had pretty bad social anxiety from a young age. I had depression from a young age. Didn't really know why. I didn't really even know what either of those things were, but I knew when I walked into a room full of people, my heart would start pounding. I would get all sweaty and I did not want to be there. I didn't want to be around anybody.
Right.
So the first time I got high was because I wanted to fit in with this specific group of people. But once I did that and felt what it was like, and like we've said before, like that was what I thought everybody felt like all the time.
Sure.
All of those negative thoughts and feelings that I had about myself, and this, you guys have probably heard me say this multiple times, but it's true and it's important. All of those negative thoughts and feelings that I had about myself went away for a little bit.
Except for that you're not big enough.
That I'm what?
Not big enough.
Well, when I was 12 years old, I didn't really care about any of that. But
we need to show an old picture of Tommy when we first started working together, what he looked like, and he was a lot smaller.
It was like 4 years ago.
4 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tommy has grown into a man right in front of our eyes.
Yep. But anyways.
His one character defect that he has is that he won't allow himself to lose any weight.
I'm not really trying to lose weight though. So.
I know, but you won't. Yeah. You never will.
Well, it's better than your problem where you are trying to lose weight.
Yeah, well.
Fatty. So the first time I got high, all of those thoughts and feelings kind of went away. And so that was what I started chasing, was not having to deal with any of that. It wasn't really even about fitting in anymore at that point. I didn't care who I was with or if I was by myself. I didn't have to be with anybody.
I preferred not to be with anybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
More drugs for you.
But I continuously chase that feeling. Obviously, you get high and that anxiety and the depression goes away for a little bit. But then once that high wears off, it comes back and it's even stronger. And we've talked about that before, the pain and pleasure centers in your brain and why that happens and how it works and all that. So that anxiety comes back even stronger once it wears off. And so then that's what started the cycle for me.
Absolutely. Well, for me, it really wasn't a whole lot of peer pressure. It was mostly just wanting to feel better. And then I started experimenting with, prescription medication that was given to me by a doctor, Adderall. They thought I had ADD. I didn't. So, that really got me pretty high. And then, when the opportunity presented itself to drink alcohol and smoke weed, I was like, heck yeah, because I knew substances made me feel good. So I just continued to use them. So what I was looking for was relief. Like in AA, they talk about being irritable, restless, and discontent. And I was irritable, restless, and discontent from a young age. And so that's what it gave me relief from. I felt, like you said, like I thought I was supposed to feel. I felt like that was the missing puzzle piece in my brain, where it got me to the point where, okay, like I can do life now that I'm up here, high or drunk, And I remember for me, even now to this day, like I can think about and remember like how excited I would get just knowing that I was going to get some weed or I was going to get a bottle. And again, like you said, it didn't even matter if people were going to be around or not. Like even in high school, I would like get a fifth of vodka because I was bored to just go get drunk in my room on like a Tuesday night, for no reason. And that's not normal behavior. That's somebody that's sick and suffering internally and it just is miserable with who they are.
Yep.
And there's a long list of reasons why anybody could feel that way, right? Could be trauma, could just be negative belief they have about themselves. Some people just have awful negative talk. Some people, it is a chemical imbalance in the brain that they have no control over. So there's a lot of different reasons why people do that. But, I definitely was looking to escape the feelings I had and the thoughts I had about myself. And that's what they did for me. So, and then that became my whole life, was escaping.
Do you think that that is the most common reason that people start using drugs and alcohol, is to escape?
Yeah, it's escape something, whether it's themselves, whether it's trauma, whether it's the feeling of being out of control. You know, I think that, yeah, 100% it's escape. And then we talk a lot about on the Remedy tour, escapism, which isn't just confined to drugs and alcohol, which could be video games, pornography, gambling, food, you know, like
anything that's going to press on that dopamine receptor and make you feel good. Well,
I remember even from a young age, even before I ever touched drugs, I've talked about this before, like how excited I would be when I was a kid to like go to that. So even before that though, like even before food was like going out with my grandma and getting a new toy.
Oh yeah.
Like how excited I was that we were going to go to Toys R Us and pick out a toy. And I got that new toy. Yeah. And so that burst of dopamine, like, you know, or like getting the Pokemon Yellow version, or, you know, on the Game Boy, you know, like how freaking excited I was. And then, like, you know, when you find that new Pokemon, everybody's talking about like, oh, you get that burst of dopamine and you're so excited and like, this is great. You know, like that was my first experience with real addiction, I think, because I remember staying up for hours, like under my covers with like a light, you know, like trying to hide from my parents that I'm playing Pokemon till like 2 a.m. as like
what you were doing.
I mean, yeah, it was, you know, like that was what I wanted to do. And then, yeah, of course, after that or around that same time was food, you know, like I remember
candy was where it started with me.
Well, candy, I think, but even like, you know, like things like Twinkies, donuts, going to like McDonald's, you know, how excited I was to go get a cheeseburger and some fries.
About as excited as you still are to go get a cheeseburger. And
yeah, dude, I love a good cheeseburger. And so like, that's another like leftover thing, which is, it's like a negative coping mechanism that is left over for me as like eating food, you know? And I think for a lot of people, they get in early recovery and they talk about like that you gain like that 15, 20 pounds when you first get sober. It's because a lot of people replace the drugs with eating a bunch of food, which is much better than, you know, shooting heroin or drinking yourself silly on a Monday night. But
well, and with alcohol too, we see it all the time. It turns, you know, there's so much sugar in alcohol.
That's what it is. Fermented sugar. It's alcohol.
Yeah, so when someone stops drinking and they have this just hankering for candy 24/7, they don't know why.
Yeah.
Like, well, do you know how much sugar you were consuming?
A lot.
Yeah, it's very common.
It is super common, you know? So, I mean, there's many forms of escapism, as I was highlighting, and a lot of people that have substance use disorder have some kind of co-occurring use disorder with another, whether it's gambling, sex, porn, video games, blah, 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 you name a list, whole laundry list. So, but it's like trying to get outside of our own reality, you know? And I even like, I mean, that's the thing with a lot of people, I think, that struggle with active addiction, is even when they're sober, they're going to struggle with being, you know, I always describe it as like, I'm either all in or I'm all out. Yeah. Like I'm either all about it or I'm not. Like, you know, if I'm going to play Call of Duty, I'm going to do it for 4 hours, or I'm not going to freaking do it at all, you know? Or if I'm going to eat like something that's bad, I'm going to eat like a cheeseburger and fries and cheese curds and then pretzel sticks. And then I'm also going to have like a donut or a slice of cake.
Bread pudding
is I love bread pudding, you know, I love donuts. I love bread pudding. So I'm all in or all out. And I think a lot of people with substance use disorder struggle with that too.
Yeah.
You know, we go hard. But recovery is a lot about balance.
Yeah.
You know, balancing your family with your career, with your passions. And that's why we need a lot of accountability. So, you know, the escapism for us is dangerous because when we start escaping, then we don't want to stop.
Yeah.
So I think, again, it just comes down to wanting to continuously escape reality. But then when you start to just do reality, like the way it is, you're really, oh, it's not as bad as I thought. Like I could really do this.
It's really not.
And then you find out that like all those people that you put on a pedestal before you got sober, like they don't have their crap together either.
Yeah.
Their life is a total crap show too. Like they're just doing the best they can, you know? Kind of like when you know somebody famous and then you meet them and you get to know them and then you're like, oh, this person's like their life, they struggle with the same thing everybody else does. You know, they're human beings. And I think that's what a lot of us try to get away from with active addiction is just our just being human.
Yeah. We
want to feel superhuman because being human is not enough.
I think one of the things that maybe people don't ever take into consideration is, you know, we're talking about dealing with real life and a lot of the negative things that do come along with that. Although really it's not that bad. Like, you know, like we been talking about for the last 30 minutes or so. But I never really experienced what it was like, except for when I was a young child. I started getting high when I was 12, so it kind of went out the window pretty early.
Yeah.
But what it's like to actually be happy,
right,
without putting any chemicals in my body. And I think, one of the best examples of that I have is, after my wife and I got married, we got married on the beach in South Carolina, and we're walking down the beach, and, it's a beautiful day outside, sunny, it's a little bit windy. Like, we're walking on the ocean. Like, that was like true, pure happiness without any chemicals in my body. Like, that was something that not only had I not really ever experienced before I got sober, but I never thought that I would either.
Absolutely.
I didn't think I was ever going to be happy. So you get so focused on the negative, and you get so focused on all of the, the negative things that you're going to have to deal with when you get sober, and dealing with your negative feelings and your negative emotions. Well, what about the positive ones?
Yeah. There's
what
a lot
about
of good
being
stuff.
happy? What about being excited for something? The only thing I was ever excited for was when I knew I was about to get high.
Get messed up.
That was it. That was the only thing I didn't care about my birthday. Didn't care about Christmas. Didn't see about my family, seeing my nieces. No, I didn't care about any of that stuff.
Nothing.
And now it's like every day I've got something new that I'm looking forward to.
Yeah.
It might be a pair of shoes coming in the mail, but
it's Tommy's new addiction
that I'm looking forward to.
He collects shoes like he used to collect bags of heroin.
Well, I keep the shoes for a little bit longer.
Yeah.
So.
You can use them more than once.
Yes.
So that's a plus.
Yeah.
He's also saved a fortune in Narcan. But yeah, I mean, I think that, for a lot of people, things are never as bad as they seem, and things are never as good as they seem. I think a lot of people get caught up in that. Yeah. With that addicted mindset is like, they're not. I think a lot of people compare themselves to others, and they see people's highlight reels of their lives on social media, and that hurts people too. So they're like, oh, well, I'm not doing as well as that person, and that person, their life's not as great as they think it is, and then your life's not as bad as you think it is.
Well, it's funny that because that person that you're thinking your life isn't as good as, they're doing the same thing to somebody else that's doing the same thing to somebody else.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's always, comparison is the thief of joy, So,
absolutely.
Like, and that's the thing we talk a lot about is gratitude, serenity, is not the same as complacency.
Yeah.
Like there's a difference between being complacent and being grateful, and enjoying your life and being joyful about it. So, I mean, that and that's one of the things I always talk about too is, drugs do a good job of killing the thing we're trying to escape, which is pain. But they also do a really good job of killing joy, killing gratitude, killing happiness. They kill every emotion that you have, and they kill your ability to be emotionally available for your family. Tommy and I, we say this every day. Like, we work with people who are usually struggling, either an active addiction or they're in early recovery. And just, the amount of pain that they're in, or that they've put the people around them in. Like we always talk about, if you don't deal with your pain, you just transfer it to everybody else. And Tommy and I got a first class, ticket to that yesterday, front row seat. We were dealing with an individual who had made a complete mess of his life and was trying to leave a program that he was at, and his family came, and they were just devastated that, he wouldn't just stay and give them a good night's sleep.
Yeah.
And it came down to, and, we had the talk about the fact that you're not willing to face your own pain just means everybody else is going to have to take it on.
Yep. Would you say that you were a pain sprinkler?
Yeah, just spraying pain everywhere. Everybody else was blades of grass, and I was the sprinkler, just spraying everybody with pain. Yep. And we don't realize how destructive it is. So in our attempted escapism, we are just completely destructive. We take hostages, and we leave broken and mangled people behind us. Yep. And then we turn around, we want to be the victim. Why is everybody mad at me? Yep. My parents won't let me come home. Yeah, probably because you stole all their stuff and pawned it, and people came in knocking at their door at 2 a.m. looking for you because you had a warrant, that kind of stuff.
Probably an endless list of reasons.
Endless list
just
of reasons.
Like our parents had.
Yeah. So and then, the best thing you can do is take responsibility and face that stuff head on.
Yep. As
scary as it is. It's the only way through it that I found that actually will give people lasting peace, serenity, hope, reconciliation with their families. So, yep.
Well, think that was all for today, unless you got anything else you would like to add.
Nope. I do not.
Okay. Well, next week I'll try to do better at my job of playing.
That's all you can do, one day at a time.
Yeah. I'm going to try to
Do the next right
I'm going to
thing.
try to be better tomorrow than I was today.
1%. That's all you got to do.
But yes, we will have a guest next week or in 2 weeks, whenever we're going to be back here. I don't know.
Then we'll have a guest the next week.
Yes, we will. But I'm not going to give away the topics right now.
Nope.
So it'll ruin the surprise.
Tune in, see.
Give him something to be excited about. The 5 people that listen to this podcast. So, all right. Well, as always, thank you guys for watching, listening, sharing, following our page. We certainly appreciate it. And we will see you next time.
That's right. Take care.